Over to Andrew at this point, and he's going to take it from here.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, Andrew here. Thank you, Alex. Let's just go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So currently I'm on just the initial dashboard. And to get to schedule generator, we're going to go to this admin tab, which is going to be an indicator that this lesson is only going to feature admin tools. So it's going to go to administration and then down to schedule manager. Alex, just let me check. You can hear me fine, right? I'm coming through?
Yep, sound good.
Cool, great. Okay, so here we are on schedule manager. And so you'll see here we just have a blank page right now. We have no schedules published in this webinar demo, but we're going to go ahead and start making some schedules. So just to make a schedule, you go to this new schedule button and then just type in the name. This in terms of naming conventions. If you're just a single department, I just like to go with the name of the month. So just look at doing January 2018. If you are part of a bigger database, maybe if you're in one of the Kaiser groups, also good to have your department name. Sometimes if you've more than one template, also good to have the template name, although that will be showing up on this side. So yeah, we have our schedule name, and then we just pick our template. In this case, we only have one. If you maybe had like a year-long schedule and then a month-by-month schedule, you would want to make sure that you are in the right template. And then we just pick our start date. So we have January 2018. Let's just look for the first start date of the 1st, and then let's end on the 31st. Now there are three options down here, the exit button, and then there's create and save and auto generate. So create and save, that's going to be a quick schedule, and it's only going to pull in your requests as well as any max preference rules. And again, those max preference rules are going to be just kind of recurring requests that get automatically put in by the system as soon as you generate. You know, those come through before any other rules get looked at. So this would be, you know, all your users' vacation time, any ed leave they have, any sick leave they have that they request, that's going to come in here, as well as say you have one of your doctors has admin time every Tuesday and you made that a max preference, that's also going to come through here. So we're just going to look at a create and save. Looks like it already exists in the department here. So we'll just call it webinar Jan 2018. Even among databases, you can't have the same name, which is why I was saying if you're one of the groups with multiple departments, you really want to specify that name. Okay, here we go. Just got a message saying it's creating, and this will be done in just a quick second. While I'll also get a auto generate going, and we'll call this one webinar February 2018. We'll just go ahead and change the actual time of it. And instead of a create and save, we're going to look at an auto generate. And that's going to take a lot longer usually because it's going to look at all the rules. So what this button does is it takes all the requests that you have currently in the system. And then from there, we let our rule set that we've developed kind of take over. And that gets sent off to our servers. And what it's really doing is looking for the optimal solution. So we set how long it's going to run for, and then once it has deemed the solution either the best it can find or the time limits run out, that's when it's going to have your generated schedule. So I'm going to click auto generate, and you'll see here it has been created and sent for auto generating. And it's kind of the time of this really depends on a lot of things. This department only has 3 personnel, and it's several rules. So only take a couple minutes. If you're a big group with maybe 40, 50, 60 providers and a rule set of 100, 200, this might take over an hour, up to a day at times. But this one should be quick. So let's go ahead and actually look at what our create and save has given us. So when it is finished, it automatically goes to not published. And this means that it's only going to exist in editor, which we'll get to in a second. You will not be able to see the schedule in View or Nsight, whichever you use. Either you nor your users can actually see it. This means that they can still make requests for January until we actually publish a schedule. That request window is going to stay open. So this is really just kind of for you to start manually tweaking your schedule, just kind of look at how those rules were treated before you actually deem it publishable worthy. And you also see here now that we just had our auto generation come through. The difference here is that you'll have a generation complete. So before we actually go in and look at what publish schedule does, let's just take a look at some of the information behind this. To find out the info of a schedule, 3 ways of doing so. Click here, and then it's going to be this info button. You could also right click here and get info, or actually just right click here and get info. Again, have it checked and select the information button, or just right click one of these 2. Let's go ahead and look at actually what we've done. This kind of lets you know the name of the schedule, when it was created, who was it by. So that's Lightning Bolt Solutions 927. That's going to be me. Last modified. It's really good if you have more than one admin to know who's been kind of looking at schedules. And then the status, not published, and then whether it's active or archived. And so we'll get to what that means in a second. And then if you guys should go look at a generation complete one, it's going to look a little different, because as well as just all this info, you see now you have this little display down here. You click that. It's also going to let you know that it was an auto-generated schedule when the result dates. That's actually when the schedule finished. So you can look at, okay, I created a schedule at 11:05 and it finished at 11:06. Only took a minute to complete. And then what we're not going to go into today, but just a way to troubleshoot. So see what rules were broken. That's going to be in this results button here. So you just click that and you get brought to is what's called the run stat. Again, just to find that again, right click here, get info, and then just click here for the results. Okay, so now let's go look into what we can actually do with the schedule. So with the not published schedule, you can actually use all these functions here, and just kind of going through all of them. This is going to be how you can copy a schedule, and that might be nice is if say you really want to kind of play around with your schedule, but you want to have that original copy that came out from the generation. Really good to make a copy of it, just for safekeeping. Also useful if you're making a layer before you run the second layer, and that's something that Alex will get into next week. Usually good to make a copy first, again, just because you might have to run a couple layers at a time until you actually find the ideal one. Next we have our delete. Just delete it. Here we have, I'm not going to go into this too much, validate, and that's going to sort of be like an auto-generate. But it's going to look at the current rule set. It's not actually going to make anything or generate a schedule. But let's say that you do make some changes to a schedule, and you want to see if that's broken any additional rules or fixed any rules that were originally broken. this is going to just compare your current schedule to your rule set. And it's going to look very similar to the violation list that you can find here. Next, we have auto generate. So, we do have this create and save schedule. And with that, we're actually able to generate on top of it. So it's gonna look at the request and look at those max preferences. And then with our rule set, it's going to build around those filled in slots. Then we have the ability to archive a schedule. And that's if you don't want to see the schedule on the main page, but you kind of want it in the back, still kept around. That's where you do that. Again, the info tool, refresh web requests. That's something that Alice can get into next time. And then you can also change the status of it. And then this last one is going to be open an editor. So let's just go ahead and actually look like what that change status button is going to do. So if you click on that, and again, there are a couple ways of actually getting to this. Click that pencil. You could also change status here, or you can actually just click the status of it. So, in terms of how many statuses you can have, there are really 4 types. And so we'll start off with this generation complete. That is just as soon as what happens when you auto generate a schedule. And you'll see here that actually you have some less functions with it. You cannot delete a generation complete. You cannot copy it. So to get those features, you just go ahead and click here, not published. You'll also see with our auto generation, you can view the violations right here. And now you see that that's that not published stage, all of these functions come back. Once you change the status of a generation complete, you cannot revert back to generation complete. That's just kind of to let you know that it was auto-generated and now it's done. So let's go ahead and actually see what happens when we change our status again. So we can go ahead and not published, click on it. And let's say now that you've made some changes, you're kind of happy. But the main thing is you don't want any more requests to come through. You've told your admins, okay, I'm looking to create the January schedule. And so to be able to finalize that schedule on November 15th, I am going to close that window. So that means you cannot once 11/15 comes around, you cannot put in any more requests for January. So what you would do is you could start generating a schedule in November, and then what you can do here is publish to just admins. And so what that is going to do is it's going to, again, close that window, and it's also going to allow you to view it in Viewer and Insights, again, whichever you choose to use. A not published schedule is only going to be viewable, one by admins, but only by admins in Editor, which we'll be looking at in the second half of this session. Once you publish to admins, you have the ability to actually look at it in Viewer and Insight. And then what is nice about that is you could also run a report off that, which I'm not sure if you have gone to yet, but we'll be looking at a later session. When you do reports, it has to be published at least to admins to look at. You'll also see here that once you publish to admins, you're unable to delete it. And that's again, a crucial safeguard. You don't want to be deleting published schedules, especially a publish to everyone schedule. Of course, because you don't want to have your users, suddenly lose access to a schedule they've worked hard to create. So just to make sure that you really know, what all these buttons do, you have to go back to not published. And then you'll see that now you can delete it. So what happens when you publish to everyone? That means that, this schedule, you've run some auto generations, you've looked at the drafts, and then you've made those manual tweaks in Editor. And now you are happy, you've got maybe 6 weeks out from when your schedule starts. And so now you put it out to your users. This is when we consider the schedule finalized. And so, yeah, you just post to everyone. Yeah, that's really just the basics of schedule creator or schedule manager. You'll be looking at some of these features next time. Just some more things. You can also just do how she looks. You'll see the template of what your schedule is in, the actual name of the schedule, when it starts and stops, and when it's published. Something important to note is that you cannot have overlapping published schedules. It comes up a lot where some users are unable to actually, they say, why can't I publish a schedule? It's because even if it's overlapping by one day, you are not able to do that. And that's just for continuity. These schedules, when they're actually published, when you go to view, they just kind of run seamlessly next to each other. Even if you have 12 different schedules making up the year, when you actually look at it in viewer, you actually can't even tell they're different schedules. So having overlapping schedules would not help that. One more thing I'm going to show you is how to change the name of the schedule. Again, for that, you can just right click one of these two, or just get info. And then to actually change the name of the schedule, it's going to look like there's nothing here. You just click on the actual schedule name. Let's say, I don't want it to be called, for some reason, Jan, or you want to call it January, or you want to say, this is version 1 of my schedule, or even, a lot of times if I'm making a schedule for an admin, I'll call it LBS. They know that I'm the one making it. And so you've kind of updated it, and now you got to click this check. It's going to give you a little notice saying you have to change the name. Do you want to proceed? Yes. Okay. And now you see the name change comes about. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to show you how to use Editor. So for that, again, if you guys missed that, I just clicked on the actual schedule name. Again, another way to do it is to use this kind of magnifying glass button. As soon as we get to here, you'll see there's no default view. It's because it's a new department. We could pick one. Let's see if we have any. It looks like we don't have any views yet. So we're just going to go with no view. You'll see at the top, you have your schedule name, the ability to select different ones. When we actually start making some views, which again is going to be a later session, you'll have the ability to select how you actually want to see the schedule. But for right now, you'll see, it actually could be better to show you. You'll see a lot of blank slots here. That's because we didn't have any requests in. So I'm actually going to show you what it looks like when we have a generated schedule. This is going to be our February one. It's the one that we auto-generated. So you'll see that we actually have some slots filled in here. As soon as you get here, you'll see that it looks just like your typical calendar, starting with Sunday through Saturday, and then you scroll down throughout the schedule. Unlike Viewer, you do not click left and right to look at different schedules. You have to look at each schedule individually. So this is only going to be a 28-day schedule. You'll also see that you have your assignment list on the left-hand side, and then in the actual blocks, you'll see, or the slots, you'll see the provider, their display name, which we set up in our personnel section. And so we'll see who's actually working that slot on that day. You'll see here, this is something you actually won't see in Viewer, but more of these required. That means that this assignment clinic has a demand of 1, and it can't be met. It's probably because we don't have enough people in the schedule to actually fill the slot. That's going to show you just in bright red that we need someone here. And then for the other ones, you'll see that we have a lot of actual maximum demand slots open. So this one's probably an optional. We have 3 of 3 left, or something like off AM, a manual assignment that no one has to go into. We still have 3 slots open to fill it with. Let's just go ahead and actually click on one of these slots, and you'll see these 3 windows pop up right away. And just going from top down clockwise, you'll see that you'll have the assignment call and then who's working it that week. You also have the provider doc ABC and what that doctor is working this week. It's called the at a glance function. And then down here you have the alternates. So, and that's if you want to have a quick swap, you'll say, I actually don't want doc ABC working call. I see, look at that. We want it to equalize. It looks like doc ABC is 1 more than Carson. It's not really an issue, but let's say we want to put, instead of doc ABC in here, we want Carson. We can just click right away and they just switch. We also see now that Carson's working 2 assignments at once. These are going to be the tallies that assignment is included in. We see we have, these 2 tallies right away. On the left-hand side is going to be just the assignment details of that slot, the name of it, what day, and then who's working it. We can edit some of these things in here. Let's say we want to attach a note to it. So let's say that you did switch Carson or doc ABC for Carson. You might want to give a reason why you made that change. We also have time. We can use a default time. That's going to be what's set up in assignment details. Instead, say we need, Carson's working, a clinic assignment that goes 1 to 5, but really he can just be in at 1 to 3. So this is where you can actually just manually adjust the times. And then text, that's going to actually replace Carson's name. What I've seen this mostly used for is if you have a locum doctor, and that could be, that could be 3 people who actually need to fill that slot, but you don't know as of yet who's going to be in it. So you just kind of fill it, you auto-generate where locum needs to be. And then, as you're manually editing it, you say, okay, actually I need, Dr. Alpha. He's the one that I want to put in for the locum instead. And that's going to replace the name. To save those changes, you can just click this button here. You'll see now that the change I made, changing it from 8 to 5 into 8 to 3, that's going to be the actual change that was made. We can also add someone. You can notice a couple ways you can do that. This is just one way you can add doc ABC to it. If you do want to be able to look at your schedule while you're making these changes, you can hold down the Alt key. And that's going to allow you to view just your screen again while you're holding down Alt, release it, and then go back to the screen. So let's take a look at what else we can do in Editor. You'll see here that as soon as we came out, actually, this floppy disk image turned red and said 4 next to it. And those are going to be the 4 changes I made. So let's take a look. We click Save. So what I'm actually doing here, and I'll just actually pull out of that. So what I actually did here is, in Editor, the changes you make aren't finalized until you actually save them. And that is kind of a purpose of Editor. You're kind of, in a sense, playing around with the schedule, seeing what works and what doesn't work. So we have 4 to actually look at those changes. You want to go on the change log here, and you'll see what happened. So you'll see here that I replaced doc ABC with Carson that day. And then, there's a couple more changes we made. A lot of them kind of may have overridden each other, but you still have that list of changes. So even if I made a change and then changed it back, it's still going to say 2 changes. Let's say you actually want to clear those changes. We don't want that to affect our schedule. We can just clear it from here. And it's going to be our fresh schedule that we started with. Let's go ahead and actually start using the tools we have at our disposal. You'll see here that right now I'm on the select tool. And that means that it's going to be just looking. It's going to bring us to this page when we actually click an assignment. So we've kind of gone through what that can do. We also have the fill tool. And that what's going to do is allow you to put someone to a slot. So when you click this tool, because we have assignments on the left and we're looking at personnel in the actual slots, we're going to fill in people. Right now we only have 2. But let's say actually, Doc ABC should be on off AM these days. I just simply click that person in there. And, a couple things you'll see. They're now in the slot. They have this star, and that means it was a manual change. And then again, we have these 2 changes. If we just X'd out of this page, these changes would not go through, not until we actually save them. Next over here, we also have the alternates. That's going to be, instead of actually filling someone in, we don't really know who we want just yet. So we actually click on Carson and we see that we have 2 alternates. One is Carson, the other is Doc ABC. And that's going to be a list of everyone you have in your group. Next, we have the remove button. Let's say, actually, what, Carson, I don't want, we don't have any vacation slots here, but let's say, okay, actually, I don't want Doc ABC working weekday call that day. We just, again, click remove. There's no submit button. These are all just temporary changes. So it's going to kind of go through right away in terms of he's, Doc ABC is now out of the slot. Next, we have our highlight tool, and that's really cool because what you can do with this is actually, up to 7 colors, and so you can select your providers. So you click Doc ABC, and you'll see now that all of their slots are going to be in yellow, and that's just for viewability. You can see just kind of at a glance how many times that doctor has been scheduled. And then if you want to also highlight Carson, we can pick another color, say green. Click on Carson. This can also be done more permanently in Viewer with View Designer, which we will be taking a look at in a couple sessions. Just to get rid of this stuff, though, let's go back to it. Click X. Let's say we're happy with these changes. We can now go in, click the floppy disk, and it's going to give us a list of schedule violations. And so these violations aren't going to be rule violations that we looked at before. These are going to be just basic violations we had. Some of those could be, min demand. We said we need someone each day in clinic. We don't. It's going to tell us that. That's a pretty big thing to violate. Even more important than maybe breaking a rule. We also have a compatibility violation, which means that Doc ABC, I'm guessing, maybe this day, was he working? If you want to see the error, you can click highlight, and it's going to show you, okay, we put Doc ABC off AM. He's also working call that day. That's going to be a big mistake. It's going to be a list of, it's going to be, compatibility. It's going to be eligibility. It's going to be min and max demand violations. Really some things that we set up at the beginning that we really don't want to try and violate. This is not going to be, if you're working call today, work post call tomorrow. It's not going to tell you those violations. That's going to come from your violation list in Schedule Manager. So again, you have a chance to highlight those errors. But what's nice about Editor is actually you can overwrite all those things. I could put Doc ABC on every assignment this day, and it would allow me to do that. Where in something like Viewer, you are not able to override those things. If someone's not eligible for an assignment, you can't just say, I don't care. They've got to go in there. And that's also because a lot of your users have access to Viewer. But in Editor, if this needs to happen, you could force save it. So if you actually do want to go ahead and save these changes, we click here, force save. And now you'll see the floppy disk goes away and these changes are now in here. Let's say you make some changes. Let's go ahead and remove some people. So you've made 4 changes here. Let's say you realize that, towards the end there, those last 2, you actually don't want those to be gone. You can go down here to the change log. And it's going to show you, again, all the changes you've made and when they were made and by who. Again, it is really useful to know if you maybe have multiple people working on a schedule at one time who made those changes. But more specifically, let's say that these last two, you know what, Doc ABC should be working, but Carson, I did want Carson removed from that assignment. You can just go ahead and click the last change you want to remove, and you click on it, and it's going to roll back anything that you clicked up. So anything that you clicked and anything that was done that was more recent than that. So let's say you have 40 changes in and you realize that your last 20, that shouldn't have been done. Instead of erasing all 40, you can specifically pick which ones you want to roll back. And you'll see here now, they did those other two ones didn't get saved, but they're still not, they're not gone. You can still go ahead and save that. Just a couple, while we're here, just a couple more things you can do, daily sums. And that's going to be where you add tallies, and they're going to add counts today. Again, something a lot of you might have seen in Viewer already. These are more just like kind of ad hoc type of things. You can just go ahead and, want to look at call. And it's going to go ahead and add that call tally. And we'll see that, starting, it's not going to line up with this, but it's going to kind of line up in its own, just more like a columns view. We'll see how many people are on call each day. We'll say, okay, that's the weekend, that's fine. There could be some days that maybe no one's in it or too many people are in it. And that's what's good about this. And again, you want to get rid of that. Lastly, you have your errors. And this is going to be a list of those violations that we talked about before. Let's go ahead and make some changes. You'll see here now that we have all these, errors. So you have a compatibility error, and you have, 36 demand errors. So again, it's going to kind of split them up for you by error. Go ahead and clear changes again. If you're in editor, just the last thing I'll go over. If you're in editor and you somehow closed out this page and you want to go back to that page, what you would do is go here, go to dashboard, and then you want to link to legacy. And so legacy is where you actually set up your administration stuff. And then back to schedule manager. So a couple more things. You have the option here to sign out and adjust your settings, just a little person on the top right. So as a review of what we've done today, we've looked at how to create schedules, edit them, publish them, kind of some of the traps you might be facing in schedules. And then we also learned how to just do some basic editing in our schedule, some manual tweaking. And again, this is only an admin lesson. Your users will never be seeing this. So now I think is a time we open up to questions. So Alex.
Okay, perfect. We got a question from Diane Turner. Looks like she is not hooked up to a microphone right now. Diane, if you want to use the chat or go ahead and dial in to the number that should be provided in your invitation where you RSVP'd, you could do that. But yeah, we'll be waiting for your question. sent her a private chat, so hopefully that'll pop up for her and she can type to us. In the meantime, we do have a question from Sharon Brenner, so I'm gonna take that question right now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sharon.
This is really simple. I used to have to run my schedules from Monday through Sunday, but I no longer have to do that. Is that correct?
No, you can run it from whenever you want. It's based on the days of the month.
Okay, and I have 3 levels in my schedule. I can overlap those, not overlap the days, but I can run like a weekend and a weeknight schedule differently. It doesn't have to be the same dates.
You can. Do you mean you have you only want to run weekends and then run weekdays?
Right, and that's how I have mine set up. But just say in December, I want to run a weekend schedule for the entire month, but then I want to run my weeknight schedules for maybe 2 weeks at a time. None of that is going to mess up anything anymore.
If you have multiple templates, you could have a weekend template that you run first, and then you have your weekday template that you run on top of that. And yes, you could run different timelines there.
And it doesn't matter day to day. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. I have from Diane Turner. If I move an old schedule into archive under the schedule creator, will that schedule still be accessible in viewer?
No, it's not. It's not going to be an active schedule.
So pretty much anytime you set anything to that archive status, it's basically just clearing it from this list of schedules that we see here. It's just getting it out of the way. It won't remain as an active schedule anymore. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
And just actually, while we're mentioning that, if you do want to look at the archive list, how you say you want to archive the schedule, you now have all of them active.
We got a follow up from Diane to say, is there a limit of the number of old schedules we can keep?
I don't think so. No.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's pretty much why the archive is there for clients that we've had for a very long time. This list of schedules, especially if they're weekly schedules, you can imagine it gets pretty chaotic. There's a ton of them there. So if you can have schedules dating all the way back for 100 years if necessary, if it gets to that point. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, we can go ahead and wrap up this webinar. We will be doing an advanced version of Editor and going through scheduling layers, mapping, and some of the parameters in next week's session on Tuesday. But thank you all for joining, and thanks, Andrew, for leading this one. I hope everyone has a good day and a great weekend. Thank you again, and take care.